At 2:13 in the morning, Lena Brooks woke to the sound of a woman crying inside the wall. Not outside her bedroom or somewhere down the hall, but directly behind the wall beside her bed. Rain tapped steadily against the windows of Blackthorne House as Lena sat up and listened. She had only been living in the mansion for 4 nights, but she was certain there wasn't supposed to be another room on the other side. At least, that's what she'd been told. Then she heard 3 slow knocks. Lena got out of bed, crossed the room, and pressed her ear against the wallpaper. For a few seconds there was nothing. Then a woman's voice whispered, "Lena!" She pulled away from the wall so quickly that she nearly tripped. A moment later, the voice returned. "Please don't leave me here." 4 days earlier, Lena had been sitting in her car outside a grocery store staring at the last $28 in her bank account. Just a few months before, she had been working at a downtown hotel, paying her rent on time and saving money to finish photography school. Then the hotel changed ownership. Half the staff was let go, and Lena's life unravelled faster than she could recover. So when she found an advertisement for a live-in household assistant, paying $1,800 a week, she knew it sounded suspicious, but she applied anyway. The next morning she drove 40 minutes outside the city, passed through a pair of iron gates, and followed a winding road through the woods until Blackthorne House came into view. The mansion was enormous. 4 stories of dark stone with tall windows and an old fountain sitting dry in the middle of the circular driveway. Camille Blackthorne met Lena at the front door. She was elegant, composed, and looked to be in her mid-50s. "My husband doesn't like strangers," she said almost immediately. Lena gave her a polite smile. "I understand." Camille studied her for a moment. "No, you don't. This house is our private world. Whatever you see here stays here." Lena should have taken that as a warning and left. But then she thought about the salary, her empty bank account, and the eviction notice waiting at home. So she stayed. Camille's husband, Richard Blackthorne, was a retired surgeon in his early 60s. He was calm, formal, and seemed to watch Lena even when he wasn't looking directly at her. During their first meeting, he gave her a list of rules. No visitors, no photographs inside the house, no entering the West Wing after 8 at night. And most importantly, no opening the blue door at the end of the 3rd-floor hallway. "What's behind it?" Lena asked. Richard paused. "The old nursery." "And what's inside?" His expression tightened. "Nothing." Camille quickly added, "We lost our daughter years ago." Richard turned toward his wife. "We don't discuss it." That ended the conversation. For the first 2 days, the job seemed almost normal. Lena cleaned unused bedrooms, organised cabinets, prepared meals, and polished furniture that looked too expensive to touch. But little things started to bother her. At dinner, the table was always set for 3 people. 1 place for Richard, 1 for Camille, and 1 for someone who never came. When Lena finally asked about the empty chair, Camille simply said, "Habit." Then there were the footsteps. Every night, around 1 in the morning, someone walked across the 3rd floor. Slowly, back and forth. One evening, Lena was sitting downstairs with Camille when the footsteps began overhead. Lena looked up. "Is Richard upstairs?" Camille stopped stirring her tea. "No." Another footstep creaked above them. Camille gave her a faint smile. "Old houses make noises." Lena nodded, but she didn't believe her. The next morning, Lena found a breakfast tray sitting outside the blue nursery door. There was toast, fruit, coffee, and a folded napkin, but none of it had been touched. She was still staring at it when Richard appeared behind her. "You shouldn't be here." Lena jumped. "I was cleaning." Richard picked up the tray, then cleaned somewhere else. Lena hesitated. Why is there food outside an empty room? Richard looked at her in a way that made her instantly regret asking. You're asking questions you weren't hired to ask. That afternoon Lena searched the Blackthorne family online. Richard had once been a respected cardiac surgeon. Camille had served on hospital boards. Their family had donated millions to medical charities. Then Lena found an old article from 14 years earlier. Their 16-year-old daughter, Evelyn Blackthorne, had disappeared. Police believed she'd run away. Her parents had told investigators she was emotionally unstable, and no body had ever been found. Lena stared at Evelyn's photograph for a long time. Then she remembered something. 3 nights earlier, while taking garbage outside, she had glanced up at the mansion and seen a pale woman standing at a 3rd-floor window watching her. At the time, she assumed it was Camille. Now she wasn't so sure. On Lena's 4th night, Richard and Camille left for a medical foundation dinner. Before they left, Richard stopped in the foyer and looked directly at Lena. "We'll be home before midnight." She nodded. He leaned slightly closer. "Stay downstairs tonight." The way he said it made Lena uneasy. It didn't sound like a suggestion, it sounded like a warning. Just before midnight, a storm rolled across the property. The lights flickered twice and then went out completely. Lena found a candle in the kitchen and lit it. That's when she heard 3 knocks upstairs. She froze. Then came 3 more. The sound was coming from the west wing. Every sensible part of her told her to stay downstairs, but she couldn't. Holding the candle in front of her, Lena climbed the stairs. The 3rd floor was almost completely dark, with flashes of lightning briefly illuminating the hallway. At the far end stood the blue door. Another knock came from behind it. Lena walked closer. "Hello?" There was no answer. She reached for the handle. Locked. Then she heard someone breathing on the other side. "Can you hear me?" she whispered. After a moment, a woman answered. "Yes." Lena stepped back. "Who are you?" The answer was so quiet she almost missed it. "Evelyn." Lena's heart seemed to stop. The missing daughter was alive. She was inside that room. "I'll get you out," Lena said. "No," Evelyn replied quickly. "Don't open it. They'll know." Lena leaned closer to the door. "What did they do to you?" Before Evelyn could answer, headlights swept across the hallway windows. Richard and Camille were home early. "Go," Evelyn whispered. Lena ran back to her room and barely made it inside before Richard came upstairs. A few seconds later he knocked. Lena opened the door. Richard looked down at her shoes. They were damp from the rain that had blown through an open hallway window. "You went upstairs?" Lena forced herself to stay calm. "I came straight to my room." Richard watched her for a long moment. "You wouldn't lie to us, would you?" "No." He smiled slightly. "Good." Then he walked away. Lena closed the door and locked it. A few seconds later she heard crying again, this time coming through the wall beside her bed. That's when she realized Evelyn's room somehow connected to hers. The next morning Lena packed her bag. She didn't care about the money anymore. She just wanted to get out of that house. But when she went outside, all 4 tires on her car were flat. Richard was standing on the porch. "Car trouble? I'll call someone. There's barely any signal out here." Lena checked her phone. Nothing. Richard gave her a calm smile. "Stay another night. I'll take care of it tomorrow." That's when Lena knew he suspected something. Later that afternoon, while Richard and Camille were outside, Lena slipped into Richard's study. Behind a painting, she found a locked cabinet. The key was hidden inside his desk. When she opened it, she found stacks of medical files, all belonging to Evelyn, medication logs, psychiatric evaluations, sedatives, and several letters. One of them had been written by Evelyn to the police years earlier. She said her father was giving her medication she didn't need and telling everyone she was unstable because she had seen something she wasn't supposed to see. Lena kept reading and finally understood what had happened. When Evelyn was 16, she discovered that Richard was secretly giving experimental treatments to wealthy patients. One of those patients died. Evelyn threatened to expose him, and 2 days later she supposedly disappeared. The study door closed behind Lena. Camille was standing there. "You weren't supposed to find that." Lena held up the letter. "Your daughter is alive." Camille said nothing. "You've kept her upstairs for 14 years. Camille's eyes filled with tears. "Richard told me she was sick." "For 14 years? He said hospitals would take her away. He said people would hurt her." Lena stared at her. "And you believed him?" Camille looked down. "At first." Lena waited. "And later?" Camille's voice dropped to a whisper. "Later. I was afraid of him too." In that moment, Lena finally understood. Camille hadn't simply been protecting Richard. Somewhere along the way, she had become trapped by him as well. "Help me get Evelyn out," Lena said. Camille shook her head. "You don't understand the people Richard knows, doctors, judges, police officers. He's spent years convincing everyone Evelyn is unstable." Lena looked at the files scattered across the desk. "Then we don't ask them to believe us, we bring proof." For the first time, Camille looked hopeful. Then footsteps sounded outside the study. Richard entered and immediately saw the open cabinet, the files, and Evelyn's letter in Lena's hand. His face went strangely calm. "I'm disappointed." He closed the door and locked it. Camille stepped between him and Lena. "Richard, stop! Move!" "No." He stared at his wife and slowly reached into his pocket. Lena saw a syringe in his hand. Camille gasped. Lena grabbed a heavy glass paperweight from the desk and threw it. It struck Richard's wrist and the syringe hit the floor. Lena ran. She raced upstairs toward the nursery with Richard close behind. "You have no idea what she is!" he shouted. Lena reached the blue door, still locked. "Evelyn!" A hand appeared beneath the door and a key slid across the floor. Lena grabbed it, unlocked the door and pulled it open. Evelyn stood inside. She was 30 years old now, thin, pale and terrified, but Lena recognized her immediately from the old photograph. "We're leaving," Lena said. Evelyn looked past her. Richard was standing in the hallway. "Evelyn," he said softly. She began shaking. "My sweet girl." "Don't call me that." Richard lowered his voice the way someone might speak to a frightened child. "You know what happens when you don't take your medication." Evelyn covered her ears. "You're confused again." "Don't listen to him," Lena said. Richard stepped closer. "She attacked her mother once." "No, she didn't." Camille appeared behind him. Richard turned. Camille was holding Lena's phone and it was recording. "You attacked me," Camille said. "Then you told everyone Evelyn did it." Richard's expression changed. Camille continued. "You've lied for so long that I almost forgot what really happened." Richard suddenly lunged toward her. Evelyn screamed. Lena shoved him away. He stumbled backward near the staircase and nearly lost his balance. Then something happened that none of them expected. Evelyn reached forward and grabbed his arm before he could fall. Everyone froze. Richard stared at the daughter he had kept locked away for 14 years. "Why?" he whispered. Evelyn looked at him and said, "Because I'm not you." Camille pulled Evelyn away and Richard collapsed onto the floor. Lena grabbed the phone. The recording had everything they needed: Richard's threats, Camille's confession, Evelyn alive, and the hidden files. Later that night, Lena finally found enough signal upstairs to call the police. Richard Blackthorne was arrested. Investigators eventually uncovered illegal medical experiments, falsified records, secret payments, and proof that Evelyn had been held inside Blackthorne House for 14 years. Camille admitted her role in hiding the truth and agreed to cooperate with investigators. Evelyn spent months recovering. Eventually she moved into a small apartment overlooking the ocean. Lena went back to photography school, and a year later she opened her first exhibition. She called it Open Doors. Every photograph showed a doorway somewhere in the world: a cottage, a train station, a church, a hotel, and one small apartment overlooking the ocean. Evelyn stood beside her on opening night. "You know what's strange?" Evelyn said. "What?" "For 14 years I imagined what I'd do when I finally got outside." Lena smiled. "What did you imagine?" "I thought I'd run." "But you didn't." Evelyn shook her head. "I walked." Then Evelyn reached into her pocket and placed a small brass key in Lena's hand, the nursery key. "I don't want it any more." Lena turned it over in her palm. "What should I do with it?" Evelyn smiled. Throw it away." Later that night, Lena stood on a bridge overlooking the river. She thought about the first night in Blackthorne House, the 3 knocks and the whisper through the wall asking her not to leave. Then she opened her hand. The key fell into the darkness below. And somewhere across town, Evelyn Blackthorne went to sleep with her bedroom door wide open.